Greetings and welcome back to the Casual Wargamer. Tonight we're going to take a look at the Adepta Sororitas codex and my thoughts on that particular army. Where do I start? Okay, so Sisters of Battle, until maybe later on, they were not in the initial Rogue Trader. I think, much like things like Harlequins and what have you, they were introduced. They may have been introduced in White Dwarf army lists as the time had gone by. By second edition, they were definitely in there by the end, and they've been a staple of the game ever since. However, there were two things that may have led partially to their creation / inclusion in the game. One you will probably be aware of, which was there were, at the time of Rogue Trader's release, two female Space Marine models. A friend of mine had both of them. And they were basically monopose. I think it was Power Sword and Bolter on both of them, just different poses, different heads. But they were not popular. They were not popular with shops because nobody wanted to buy those particular blister packs. So Pack A and Pack B that came with those two sisters just didn't sell. And if you've seen any of the videos where former or old Games Workshop staff talk about them, they basically say they were always being sent back because nobody wanted to buy those packs. They were not popular with the players, which is interesting because, you know, these days there's whole arguments about female Space Marines and Custodes and what have you. And these were not originally Sisters of Battle; they were Space Marines. But they were out at the time, and I think they were certainly something that led towards maybe the creation of Sisters of Battle. The other thing is a picture at the back of the Rogue Trader book, which depicts a Space Marine of the Rainbow Warriors chapter being shot by a female power armored figure. We know it's female because it's got boob plate, and she's got Sister Sin emblazoned on the side of her pauldron. I think this is not a Sister of Battle. I think this was an Inquisitor, but, you know, opinions may vary. But I think they are things that, if you've been in the game long enough, you know of these. You might even remember them if you were like me, going back that far. And I think they certainly got the imagination firing at the time. As I say, I don't recall Sisters of Battle coming out in Rogue Trader, not even in White Dwarf, but I'm sure they probably did. And they were definitely there by second and definitely in there by third. And fourth edition, which was the first time I ever actually played against them because my nephew played them, they were in a codex called Witch Hunters, which was basically Ordos, Hereticus, Inquisitors, Retinues, and Sisters of Battle. Grey Knights likewise were in a Demon Hunters book with Ordo Malleus, Inquisitors, Retinues, and so forth. And they were not a great army in fourth. Even I, Mr. Casual, could beat my nephew's Battle Sisters quite frequently. At least a 50% win rate, I would say. They were not great. But I think over time, with each subsequent edition, I think he gave up playing them in fifth because he couldn't win with them against other people, I should point out. He gave them up then, but I think over each subsequent edition, 5th through 6th through 7th and so on up to today, especially today, they have got better and better. They have reached a point where I think they are certainly playable now. I think 8th made that quite strong, and they've got better ever since. But I have issues, which I will come to shortly when we start talking about the army itself. I like them as an army, and I like the lore behind them. And that lore, despite the fact there are people out there who will grumble and go, no, you're wrong. I'm not wrong. The Sisters of Battle are basically the militant arm of the Holy Ecclesiarchy and the Ordos Hereticus. Some people don't like that concept, but that's the way it is. The original lore was that following a particular religious struggle, The ecclesiarchy was told it could not have a standing army of men, so they basically got a load of women. Technically, legalese. And that's where they come from. And they basically don their armour and grab their melter weapons whenever there is a threat to one of their like bastion, cathedral, church, temple, crematoria, cemetery worlds, or somewhere, cults and heretics turn up and they go in to purge them. It's a grand concept. Now, normally I don't talk about the units until towards the end of the video, but I'm going to look at the data sheets now. The Sisters of Battle is another codex with an absolute shed load of characters, all of which give different sort of benefits and so forth. And whereas previously you used to just have Saint Celestine, now you've got several other epic heroes. But the only thing I say the only thing, that's not very good wording. Pretty much every list I have faced against has always included Morven Val and at least 2 Hospitallers. Because the Hospitallers with the Miracle Dice mechanic are balked. What do I mean by that? Well, if you take something like, say, a Space Marine Apothecary, they have an ability that says they can pull one model back from the dead in the beginning of the command phase. Hospitallers have that. But they also have a mechanic that says if you ditch a Miracle Dice, you can have D3 plus 1 back. And the amount of times I've spent trying to gun down units and only have the Hospitaller go, well, I'll get rid of this one and I get half a squad back. Absolutely infuriating. I don't like that. It's not fair. But that's why you see them played. And Morven Val, pretty much, I can't think of a single list since she was introduced to the game where you don't see her with her Paragon warsuits striding up the battlefield and basically causing trouble. And I've only ever managed to deal with her maybe once or twice. She is strong. Then you get something like the Triumph of St. Catherine, which I never see anybody bother with. But you generally see most of everything else used, but that never makes an appearance. The nice thing in this list is you have Battle Sister squads, your only battle line option, and the reason I say it's nice is because most armies, people don't tend to take a lot of battle line. I tend to see everything else. They focus on the heavy weapon squads and they focus on this, the stuff that falls under the other bracket. But every game I've ever played or seen with Battle Sisters has at least 3 Battle Sister squads in it, which you don't normally see of some in other armies. And that's nice. You have the Immolators and the Rhinos for your transports, and again, you always see Rhinos and the occasional Immolator being used. Your other options, you've got a host of really cool choices. You've got your heavy weapon squads, you've got your flying flamers, Seraphim, Retributors and Dominions and all this sort of stuff. Sacrosancts are absolutely silly. But you've had some really cool options now. You have the Castigator, which is your big tank, which is well worth including. So you have a nice range of toys. There is one thing that is missing, and that is an aircraft. Now, I know people go, aircraft are crap. We don't have them in 40k. Well, I'm not going to argue that. Aircraft are not the greatest in this edition. But Sisters don't have an aircraft. Now, in the lore years ago, they had access to a Forge World model called a Avenger Strike Fighter. It was never officially a unit you could take in a Sisters army list, but in the lore for said aircraft, Battle Sisters made use of it. They had pilots that flew these things. But ever since, it's only been a pure Astra Militarum / Imperial Guard, depending on your age, aircraft. And I think it's a real shame that has never... it's one of those options I think that Games Workshop should make a plastic kit and give it. I mean, if Deathwatch and Grey Knights, can have aircraft, why can't Battle Sisters? I mean, seriously, make aircraft properly playable, and it would be fine. That's the only thing I think that is generally missing from this list. I think they have something to cover every possibility. Otherwise, okay. So that is your infantry. That's your units. Acts of Faith is your army rule, and this is where I start to have a problem. So you have miracle dice, and you get a miracle dice at the start of each battle round, and each time one of your Sororitas units is destroyed. You roll the dice, and whatever number it comes up is what that dice is. Okay, and you can spend these to convert one dice from an advanced roll, battle shock test, charge roll, damage roll, hit roll, saving throw, or wound roll into the value that you choose from your miracle dice. Now, you don't start off with a lot of them, but over the course of the game, you amass quite a lot of them. Every time one of your units dies, or when certain enhancements kick in, or certain stratagems, boom. And it ends up becoming, as far as I'm concerned, basically the same problem that we had with Eldari Fate dice before they changed it. There was a comment a long time ago about the Fate dice in 10th, which was that Eldari were playing a completely different game to everybody else because they could just go, I'll have this dice, I'll have this dice. I find that same problem applies to Battle Sisters. And I think part of the reason for that is there is no cap to the number of miracle dice you can get. If you lose loads of units, you generate a mass load of dice. Now, they are 1 to 6. You could have a range of things. But there are abilities, like I said about the Hospitaller a few minutes ago, where you can just go, well, I'll ditch a 1 and I get D3 plus 1 models back. I do. If you've got Morgan Val, for example, you can ditch a 1 and basically make her attacks better. It doesn't. It's not always particularly relevant what dice is on it. Just that's for when you swap a dice out. And it makes, I don't want to say it's balked, but my word, it makes the game so frustrating, so irritating to play against in exactly the same way that Eldari used to be. Now, if they put a cap on the number of dice you can have, absolutely pucker. But to my knowledge, from everything, there isn't anything like that. They haven't fixed that in any way or anything like that. It's just a flat, you've got however many you've got. If there was a cap on it, I think that would be fine, depending on what that cap was. I might even be tempted to put it as low as something like 4 or even 5. I suppose most people would say 6. I don't know. I don't want to screw the army over because it's like an integral part of how they play. But I find it overly strong. Okay, so we're going to have a quick look at detachments. I'm not going to. Normally, I go through these detachments and I go through every single thing. I'm not going to do that anymore because 1, I feel it drags the videos out, and 2, we only need to sort of like cover the basics of how they work. So, Hallowed Martyrs. So they have an ability called Blood of Martyrs, which means that when you shoot at a unit, you get +1 to the hit roll if the target is below its starting strength, and +1 to the wound roll if they're below half strength. Very nice. They are a shooty army primarily, so this really helps. But it isn't something to sneeze at in melee either, so good. Enhancements. Now I'm going to show you exactly what I mean here without the miracle dice. The first enhancement on here is Saintly Example. For just 10 points, when the bearer of this enhancement is destroyed, you get D3 miracle dice. So for 10 points, you put that on the cheapest character you have and you run them out across the battlefield. They're going to die. Your opponent is not going to let them go and sit on an objective or go and complete an action. They're going to shoot them. They die. Have D3 free miracle points. It might be thematic, but it's generating you too many miracle dice. Through suffering and strength, you get +1 to the attack, strength, and damage of melee weapons. And if the bearer has lost at least 1 wound, they get +2 to those instead. Nice. Chaplet of Sacrifice. End of your command phase. If the bearer is on the battlefield, you can re-roll 1 miracle dice from your pool and return it to the dice pool with the new result. When doing so, if the bearer's unit is below starting strength, you can re-roll up to 3 miracle dice this way. So you basically go, well, I've got these crap dice, these 1s, 2s, and 3s. Well, it's no loss to re-roll all of them. And I go, oh, look, odds are I'm going to get something a lot better. 25 points, fair play. But it's another tweaking of miracle dice. And then you have the Mantle of Ophelia, which basically you can pick 1 attack which has its damage reduced to 1. So you see what I mean? 2 out of 4 there are playing around with the faith dice mechanic and generating you either extra dice really easily, or just once, or every command phase changing a dice up. As for the stratagems, you've got 1 here, Divine Intervention. Discard up to 3 miracle dice for a Sororitas character that was just destroyed, and they stand back up again as close to where they were at engagement range. And you roll a d3, adding 1 to the result for each miracle dice that you discarded, and that's how many wounds they come back with. You cannot pick Saint Celestine for this for obvious reasons, and you cannot pick the same character more than once. It's handy dandy. You are getting rid of those miracle dice, admittedly. But you make it very difficult to kill off characters. You have another one where it's a bit of an odd one, this one. Suffering and Sacrifice. So you have to pick an infantry or sorority unit in the start of the fight phase. And to the end of the phase, each time an enemy model with the engagement range of that unit selects its targets, it must select your target unit as the target of its attacks. So, if my brain is reading that right, it's basically only useful for you if you are engaged with multiple enemy units, so that you stop one of them. If they're engaged with multiple of your units, it stops them picking on the one that they want to. They have to pick on the one you want, which seems like a really weird. All right, again, it's slightly tactical, but really weird. I have to read that one over and over in my head. It's going to go, why? There you go. Then you've got another one that lets you re-roll hit and wound rolls. You've got an auto vehicle explosion, fights on death, and one that lets you shoot back at an enemy unit that shot and destroyed at least 1 model in your squad. It's very generic as a detachment. It's one of those I saw played a couple of times when the book dropped, but generally not much since. Penitent Host, and okay, this is the only one of the 4 here that I don't like. And it's not I don't like in I think it's overpowered. I just think it's another one that's too specific. I mentioned this in nearly most codices, that there's one where I've picked something which is fine and thematic, but you're probably never going to see it played because it's so specific. In this instance, the Penitent Host is built around your Penitent units, which are your Minister and Priest, Arco-Flagellants, Mortifiers, Penitent Engines, and Repentia squads. And I think more than anything, this is built around Penitent Engines. And the basic rule for this is they have a vow of atonement, and there's 3 to pick from, which is like the Space Marine disciplines. And you pick one at the beginning of a battle round, and you can't use the same one twice. You have Path of the Penitent, which gives 3 each move to Penitent models. You have Absolution in Battle, where if your unit charges, they get +1 to the attacks and strength of melee weapons if they're a Penitent unit. And Death Before Disgrace, where each time a Penitent model is slain in your army by a melee attack, if they haven't fought, you roll a dice on a 2+, they basically get fight on death. quite nice, not a problem. No argument on there. Enhancement wise, you've got another one that lets you. Where are we? While the bearer is on the battlefield, each time an enemy is destroyed by a penitent unit from your army, you can discard a miracle dice and then gain a miracle dice showing a 6. All right, it's 30 points, but really? Okay. All right. It's not maybe all that useful. It's a penitent character, which is basically a Ministorum priest. So the odds of him doing anything, but I'll come to that. Then you've got another one where you can choose to select one unit that can use a vow of atonement even if it's already been used, but it's active for that unit in addition to any other. One that gives a 5+ invulnerable save, and then Catechism with Divine Penitence. So you can apply this to a Canoness, Palatine, or Ministorum priest, and they gain the penitent keyword and can be attached to a Pentia squad. Except Ministorum priests already have the penitent keyword, so why? Okay, and so every single one of these detachment stratagems here uses the penitent keyword. The only one that is actually usable by anything that isn't penitent is Boundless Zeal, which basically says a unit can shoot or charge on a turn which it falls back. But if they're penitent, they get to shoot and declare a charge on a turn they fall back. So your other units get to get the benefit of it. All other 5 stratagems are a penitent engine. A penitent unit. A penitent unit. It's fairly obvious to me. Correct me if I'm wrong, if you're a Sororitas player. But this seems to be about, we play a small size game, I field loads of penitent engines, and I gain the benefit of these. They hit hard, they hit like a brick, but I've never seen anybody play this, ever. I've not even seen a battle report on YouTube where anyone's bothered to play this. To me, it's just naff. It's too specific. Instead of picking penitent models, they should have picked something else in the army and given them, or at least make the stratagems so they apply to something that's not just penitent. Make it so you can still use stuff on your battle sisters and your other infantry units. Bringers of Flame. Now, this is the one that, in my experience, or since this codex come out, everybody plays. This is the one where pretty much you are playing all your melter weapons and all your heavy bolters and your heavy flamers and all that good stuff. And the rule for this is Fervent Purgation, which means every ranged weapon that your Sororitas models have has the assault ability. So they're running up the table at you and they're giving you the old Daka. And each time an attack is made with such a weapon and it targets a unit within 6, adds 1 to the strength characteristic of the attack. That's awesome. Enhancement wise, here we go. Righteous Rage. Each time the bearer is selected to fight, you can discard 3 miracle dice, and each one you get 1 extra attack and strength on your melee weapons. So I've generated all these points. You've killed lots of my little squads. I go for them and whack. It's only 15 points. And okay, it's only on the character, but with the sort of weapons that characters tend to run around with, that could be, half a squad taken down or more. But it is using the miracle dice, and it is a cool ability. The Manual of Saint Griselda. Now, this is one that really grinds my bones. Start your command phase, you can discard up to 2 miracle dice, then add 1 miracle dice to your miracle pool, showing a dice of value equal to the sum of the 2 dice you discarded to a maximum of 6. Okay, so you get rid of 2 average dice to get a 6. But then that 6 can be what saves you or what gives you that charge or what gives you that whatever. I know, I'm being a bit grumpy with it, but it just feels like there is so much manipulation of miracle dice in this army, it just gets on. Fire and Fury. So 30 points, which seems quite high, but hey-ho. The torrent weapons in that model's unit get +1 attacks, and all other ranged weapons get sustained hits 1 instead. That's nice. 30 points seems a little high, but I'll run with it. And then lastly, a Canoness or Palatine model gets a 2-up save and a 5-up feel no pain. Nice. Okay. So, you have, where are we? So, Shield of Aversion is basically Armour of Contempt for Sisters of Battle, because, you know, Space Marines can't have cool things. Everyone else has to get their stuff. Righteous Blows gives you lethal hits with melee weapons. And if a unit is destroyed by if a model is destroyed by these attacks, they must make a battle shock test. You've got another one where you can reroll advanced rolls for transports, and units can disembark from that transport even though it advanced, but cannot declare a charge. Cleansing Flames, so torrent weapons become devastating. You have Right to Fire, which gives you an extra, gives you bonuses to the wound roll if you are shooting somebody within 6 inches of an objective marker, and again can generate battle shock tests. And Blazing Fire, so if one of your transports is shot at by an enemy unit, after they finish shooting, your unit can jump out and shoot back at them. Okay, the stratagems are fairly average, I think, nothing to write home about, but it's that assault ability with all your heavy weapons and the like. You can run up and you do the Dakka. You've got the necessary things like with the lethal hits with Righteous Blows from melee units. It can be quite a nasty detachment. It was slightly better, as I recall, before GW started to nerf things, because it used to be pretty much the go-to for Sisters lists. And to be fair, it's still the one I see most often. And lastly, you have Army of Faith, which has a special rule of you can perform 2 acts of faith per phase instead of 1, which is nice. Enhancement-wise, in your command phase, you can make a leadership test with a character wielding this particular one, Litanies of Faith, and if you pass, you gain a miracle dice. The Blade of St. Eleanor increases your strength and AP of your melee weapons by 1, and you gain precision. And each time it fights, if one or more enemy models is destroyed, you gain a miracle dice. Oh, look, guess where this is going? Divine Aspect. You can select a unit within 12, and they must make a battle shock test. If they fail it, you gain a miracle dice. And Triptych of the Macarian Crusade. Each time the bearer uses an act of faith to substitute a saving throw, it is successful, regardless of the value of the miracle dice. I know. It's a prime example, again, of what I'm saying about where miracle dice generation and the usage just feels like how Eldari were playing. So what do you have on this one? Jump pack, stratagem-wise, Shield of Faith. So your jump pack units get Feel No Pain. You have got Light of the Emperor, where you can reduce, while the unit is blessed, it can already roll modifiers to the following: its weapon skill, ballistic skill, ability test, or tests made for it. This is nice. Faith and Fury. Melee weapons have Lance, and again, if you kill something, you gain a miracle dice. Blinding Radiance, so any attacks against you, ranged attacks, and fight phase, shooting and fight phase, get -1 to hit. Divine Guidance basically improves your AP by 1, and if you destroy an enemy model, you gain a miracle dice. And Angelic Descent, so a jump pack unit can be removed from the battlefield and put into a strategic reserve. Now, for all my grumbling on this about miracle dice, I don't think I've seen this played since the codex came out. You've got, of the 4 detachments here, 3 of them are nice, 1 of them I think is quite pants. I think the Sororitas Codex is good. I think it's strong, regardless of my views on miracle dice. It's certainly one of the better books to come out thus far, I think, in 10th edition. And it's nice to see that Sisters have come from being an army that wasn't particularly great to being one that's got a good book. I think it's definitely an army that you as a player have to know how to manipulate that mechanical miracle dice effect. But if you can do that, then you will take this book and go quite far, I think. That's my thoughts on the Sisters of Battle Codex. Let me know if you agree or disagree. And yes, please rant at me if you think that I've got the view of Miracle Dice completely wrong, or what you would do to change it, or if you agree with me. I would really like to know that I am not the only one out there who thinks this is a somewhat overpowered system. In the meantime, throw your comments down below. I would love to know what you think. Give me a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and I will see you in the comments and in the next video. Until then, take care and good gaming.